The Crystal Ballroom was the kind of place that smelled of expensive lilies and even more expensive desperation. The air conditioning was set to a crisp 68 degrees, yet my father was already sweating through his tuxedo. Our table, the $25,000 VIP table my parents could barely afford, was perfectly positioned to see everything, which meant everyone could see us. Drop a comment and let me know where you are listening from right now. Have you ever been the invisible person in a crowded room? I want to hear your story. I didn't say anything. I didn't flinch. I simply adjusted the linen napkin on my lap and offered Gary, the disheveled mid-level manager my sister had dragged here, a polite, tight-lipped smile. "Nice to meet you, Gary," I said, my voice even. He mumbled something about quarterly reports and tugged at his collar, clearly as uncomfortable as I was supposed to be humiliated. But humiliation requires caring about the opinion of the person insulting you, and frankly, I had run out of that currency years ago. Sitting there, surrounded by the clinking of crystal and the low hum of high-stakes networking, I let my mind drift. I activated what I call my invisibility cloak. It is not magic. It is a psychological survival mechanism I perfected somewhere between my 12th birthday, when my parents forgot to pick me up from school because Emerson had a dance recital, and my 30th, when they forgot my birthday entirely. The concept is simple. If I don't react, if I don't shine, if I remain a gray rock in their colorful, chaotic narrative, they cannot target me. They need a reaction to fuel their drama. They need me to be the failure so Emerson can be the success. It is a balance sheet they have been balancing on my back for decades. So I give them nothing. I become the background noise. I let them believe I am just Catalina, the quiet lab technician who stares at spreadsheets all day and goes home to a lonely apartment. It is safer that way. Because if they knew the truth, if they knew that the lab I work in is actually the R&D headquarters for one of the largest aerospace firms in the world, and that the spreadsheets I stare at are patent filings for propulsion systems that are currently revolutionizing commercial space travel, they wouldn't be proud. They would be threatened. Or worse, they would try to consume it. See, my family operates like a failing corporation. Emerson is the flashy marketing department, promising the world with zero substance. Thomas and Rebecca are the board of directors, desperate to maintain the illusion of growth while the coffers run dry. And I was assigned the role of the bad asset, the write-off, the cautionary tale. "Don't be like Catalina," they would whisper. So smart but no ambition. They couldn't be more wrong. I have plenty of ambition. I just directed it inward, building a fortress of success they couldn't touch. I became the director of aerospace engineering at 32. I hold patents that generate more revenue in a quarter than my father's company has made in 5 years. I have a life so full, so vibrant, and so deeply satisfying that their pity feels like a joke I am the only one in on. But I keep it hidden. Because in a family of narcissists, being invisible isn't a curse. It is a superpower. It is the only way to build something real without them tearing it down to use the scraps for their own validation. So I sat there sipping my water, letting Emerson preen and my parents sweat, secure in the knowledge that while they were playing checkers with social status, I was playing three-dimensional chess with gravity. And I was winning. The waiters arrived with the first course, a delicate seared scallop that probably cost $40 a plate. My father, Thomas, wiped another bead of sweat from his forehead. He wasn't sweating because of the heat. He was sweating because he was broke. I knew it. I had run the numbers on his company myself, just out of curiosity, using public records. They were leveraged to the hilt. The only way out was a massive infusion of capital, and tonight was their Hail Mary pass. "He is here," Emerson hissed, checking her phone for the 5th time in 2 minutes. "The itinerary says Alexander Sterling arrives at 8 sharp. We need to be ready. Rebecca, make sure your posture is open," Thomas instructed, adjusting his cufflinks. "And Emerson, for God's sake, don't look so hungry. Investors smell desperation like sharks smell blood." "I am not desperate, I am prepared," Emerson snapped, smoothing her sequin dress. Then she turned her gaze on me. Her eyes narrowed. "Kat, what are you doing?" "Checking the time," I said, sliding my phone back into my clutch. I had just received a text from Alexander. "Parking now. The security detail is a bit excessive, even for me." "Put it away," Emerson commanded, her voice a harsh whisper. "It looks unprofessional. You look bored. And honestly, you look cluttered sitting there." "Cluttered? Yes. You are bringing down the property value of this table," she said, gesturing vaguely at my black dress. "If Mr. Sterling comes over here, I don't want him distracted by Whatever energy you are putting off, maybe you should go check on the coats. Or see if the bar needs help clearing glasses. Make yourself useful. The audacity was breathtaking. It wasn't enough to invite me just to fill a chair. Now she wanted to demote me to cloakroom attendant to clear the visual field for their pitch. They viewed me not just as a failure but as an active liability. An obstacle to their success. This was the fixer trap they always put me in. I was either the problem to be solved or the tool to be used, never a person. I am fine right here, I said, my voice cool. Dad, Emerson whined. She is going to ruin it. This pitch has to be perfect. Catalina, my father said, his tone warning. Do as your sister asks. We have a lot riding on this. Don't be selfish. Selfish. That was their favorite word for me. Whenever I refused to be their doormat, I was selfish. Whenever I set a boundary, I was difficult. I looked at my father, really looked at him. I saw the fear in his eyes. He was a drowning man trying to stand on my head to keep breathing. I am staying, I said. And I promise, I won't say a word to Mr. Sterling. You won't even know I am here. Fine, Rebecca huffed. Just shrink. Try to be less present. I turned back to my scallop, cutting it with surgical precision. Rink. That had been their instruction my entire life. But tonight, for the first time, I wasn't shrinking. I was expanding. They just couldn't see it yet. The air in the room shifted. The chatter died down. The spotlight swung toward the double doors. It was time. The ballroom went silent, a collective intake of breath as the MC's voice boomed over the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our keynote speaker and this year's Investor of the Year, Mr. Alexander Sterling. The heavy oak doors swung open, and there he was. Alexander entered like a gravitational event. He didn't just walk into a room. He reorganized it. He was flanked by 2 security guards and a trailing wake of photographers, flashes popping like lightning. He wore a tuxedo that fit him with the kind of dangerous precision that made every other man in the room look like they were wearing a rental. He was tall, devastatingly handsome, and radiated the kind of quiet, absolute power that money cannot buy but definitely enjoys renting. That is him, Emerson gasped, clutching the tablecloth. That is the money. Oh my God, he is looking this way. My family practically vibrated. Thomas straightened his tie so hard I thought he might choke. Rebecca pasted on a smile that looked painful. They were ready to pounce, to fawn, to beg. Alexander paused at the top of the stairs, scanning the room. He ignored the mayor. He ignored the CEO of the hosting tech giant. He ignored the outstretched hands of people desperate for a second of his attention. His eyes swept the crowd with a bored intensity until they locked onto table 12. They locked onto me. He started walking. Direct line. He moved through the crowd like Moses parting the Red Sea. People stepped back awed. He is coming here, Thomas whispered, his voice trembling. He is coming to us. Emerson, get the pitch deck ready. Emerson fluffed her hair, leaning forward, ready to intercept him. Hello, Mr. Sterling, she rehearsed under her breath. I am Emerson, VP of. Alexander didn't even slow down. He walked right past Emerson. He walked right past my father, who had actually half risen from his chair with his hand extended. He walked straight to the shame corner of the table. He stopped in front of me. The room was dead silent. You could hear the ice melting in the glasses. He smiled, and it was the only genuine thing in that entire ballroom. He reached out, took my hand, and pulled me gently to my feet. He kissed my knuckles, then leaned in and kissed me on the cheek, lingering just a second too long for polite company. Sorry I am late, my love, he said, his voice deep and carrying clearly in the silence. The board meeting ran long. Did they save a seat for your husband? I looked at my family. Their faces were frozen in a tableau of absolute, incomprehensible shock. It was the single most satisfying moment of my life. They tried to send me to the coat check, I said softly, smiling up at him. But I saved you a spot. Alexander turned slowly to look at them. His arm sliding around my waist, heavy and possessive. His eyes, so warm a second ago, turned to ice as he regarded my parents. Coat check, he repeated, the danger in his voice unmistakable. Well, that was a mistake. The silence at the table shattered. It started with a choking sound from my father, followed by my mother's nervous, high-pitched laugh. It was the sound of a worldview cracking open. Alexander, Rebecca stammered, her eyes darting between him and me as if trying to solve a complex physics equation. We were just joking. Course we saved a seat. We didn't know. We had no idea you and Catalina were acquainted. Acquainted. Alexander raised an eyebrow. He didn't sit down. He stood there, looming over them, forcing them to crane their necks. We have been married for 5 years, Rebecca. We have 2 children. Acquainted is a bit of an understatement. Married. Emerson squeaked. She looked like she was malfunctioning. But Kat is. She gestured vaguely at me, as if my very existence contradicted the concept of marriage to a billionaire. Kat is, what? Alexander asked, his voice soft and lethal. Emerson floundered, her marketing brain frantically trying to spin the narrative. She stood up, smoothing her dress, forcing a bright, terrifying smile. She pushed past me, inserting herself into Alexander's personal space. What she means is, Kat is so private. She never tells us anything. You know how she is, always in her little shell. She laughed, touching Alexander's arm familiarly. So you are the brother-in-law. I have to say, Kat is the lucky one. Talk about snagging a catch. How did she manage that? Did she trick you? It was a joke, but it wasn't. It was a dig. A way to reassert dominance. Even now, she had to frame me as the grifter, the lucky charity case. Alexander looked down at her hand on his arm until she removed it. Then he looked at the table. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He spoke with the absolute authority of a man who owns the building. You have it backwards, he said. I am the trophy husband here. He turned to me, his expression softening into pride. Catalina isn't just my wife. She is the director of aerospace engineering at Hyperion. She is the one who designed the navigation systems for the Mars fleet. She holds the patents that funded my venture capital firm. He looked back at my father. You are here to pitch investors, Thomas. You are pitching the wrong person. I just write the checks. She builds the empire. I am the face. She is the brain. Without her, I am just a guy in a suit. Without her, none of this exists. He paused, letting the weight of his words crush them. So, if anyone is lucky to be at this table, it is you. The realization hit them like a physical blow. Thomas went gray. He looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in years. He didn't see his daughter. He saw a stranger. He saw power. And he was terrified. But desperation is a powerful drug. Even as the shame washed over him, I could see the gears turning in my father's head. He was drowning and I was suddenly a lifeboat. Catalina, he breathed, his voice trembling. Director. Hyperion. He reached under the table and pulled out a leather-bound folder. A pitch deck. The one he had prepared for Alexander. He didn't put it away. He slid it across the table, past the crystal glasses, past the expensive floral arrangement, directly toward Alexander. Family is family, Alex, Thomas said, his voice thick with forced camaraderie. We didn't know. We are so proud. But look. We are bleeding. The business is in trouble. We need the series of funding. The propulsion tech we are building. It fits your portfolio perfectly. It is revolutionary. Just take a look. Alexander didn't touch it. He looked at me. It is your call, Director. I reached out and took the folder. My father watched me with hungry eyes. Just read it, honey. It is brilliant. It is our legacy. Open the deck. I scanned the technical specs on page 3. The schematics on page 5. The fuel mixture ratios on page 10. My blood ran cold. I knew these numbers. I knew these diagrams. I didn't just know them. I had written them. These were scanned copies of my college thesis notes. The notebooks I had left in the attic when I moved out 10 years ago. The silly little drawings my father had mocked me for. He had stolen them. He had built his entire failing company on my intellectual property, claimed it was his, and was now trying to sell it back to my husband. They weren't just narcissists. They were thieves. I closed the folder. The sound was soft, but it felt like a gunshot. This isn't your tech, I said. Of course it is, Thomas said, sweating profusely now. Our R&D team developed it. You don't have an R&D team, Dad. You have my old college boxes. I held up the deck. This is my handwriting in the margins of the schematic. You didn't even bother to retype it. Catalina, please, he hissed. Don't do this here. Alexander, I said, turning to my husband. They want funding for the Sterling Vance propulsion drive. Alexander frowned. We can't fund that. Why not? Emerson demanded. It is perfect. Because, Alexander said calmly, I don't make decisions on aerospace acquisitions. That requires a unanimous board vote. And the board chair holds the veto power. Who is the chair? Thomas begged, his eyes darting around the room. Introduce us. We will pitch to them. Alexander pointed at me. She is. I stood up. The chair scraped against the floor. The power dynamic didn't just shift. It evaporated. I looked down at my father, at the man who had called me a waste, a failure, a burden. I held his salvation in my hands. I am the board chair, I said. And I recognize this technology because I invented it. You stole from me. You mocked me. And now you want my money to save you from your own incompetence. I dropped the folder onto the table. I am not your daughter tonight. I am the director you stole from. And the answer is no. You can't. Emerson shrieked, forgetting herself, forgetting the gala, forgetting everything but the money slipping away. You owe us. We raised you. Security, Alexander said, not raising his voice but raising a hand. Two large men materialized from the shadows. Please escort these guests out, Alexander said. They are disturbing the board. Thomas tried to argue, but the guards were professional and firm. They guided my sputtering red-faced family away from the table, marching them past the gawking investors, past the media, and out the double doors. Their exit was the exact opposite of Alexander's entrance. Messy, loud, and utterly undignified. The room was quiet again. People were staring, but differently now. There was no pity in their eyes. Only respect. And fear. Alexander turned to me. Are you okay? I took a deep breath. The air in the ballroom didn't smell like desperation anymore. Smelled like victory. I am perfect, I said. Dance with me, he asked. I would love to. We walked to the dance floor. The band, sensing the mood, began to play something slow. We danced one dance in the center of the room, surrounded by the people who ran the world. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was hiding. I felt like I had finally arrived. Later, as we drove home in the back of Alexander's car, the city lights blurring past the window, I rested my head on his shoulder. My phone was blowing up. Texts from Emerson, voicemails from my mother, but I didn't look. I silenced it and put it away. I thought about all the years I spent in the dark. The years of working twice as hard to be seen half as much. The years of swallowing insults and storing them away like fuel. I realized that my silence hadn't been weakness. It had been a cocoon. I had been building my wings in the dark so that when I finally spread them, no one could clip them. To everyone who is currently the invisible person in the room. To the black sheep, the scapegoat, the quiet one in the corner. I know it hurts. I know you feel like you are screaming underwater. But listen to me. Your worth is not determined by their blindness. Their inability to see you does not make you transparent. Keep building. Keep working. Keep saving your receipts. Build your empire in the silence, brick by brick, patent by patent, victory by victory. Let them underestimate you. Let them laugh. Because one day the doors will open, the light will hit you, and they will realize that while they were playing games, you were changing the world. And when that day comes, you won't need their applause. You will have your own.